Hello and welcome to another episode of In Your Wheelhouse, brought to you by Wheelhouse IT. My name is Todd Rosales and I'm your host today. Folks, we are coming up. We're not actually coming up on it. We are in the middle of hurricane season right now. We have been going through a pandemic and now we have to deal with hurricane season. It's just one right after another. Luckily for us, Wheelhouse has a lot of very good friends. If you've joined us previous, you know that we did a webcast with the National Hurricane Center, and now we are joined by our friends at FPL. So today they're going to give us some insight on how you can best prepare for a storm, what to expect during a storm, and some other great information that should be useful for you to get you through hurricane season for the first time amongst a countrywide pandemic. So please welcome my guest today, Juliet Roulhac from FPL. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Todd, for having us. Wheelhouse, this is such a great opportunity to share information and have everyone prepared for storm season. And we're acutely aware that it started on June 1st. So we don't take it lightly and we're getting ready. And as you mentioned, not only a hectic storm season as predicted, but during a pandemic as well.
Yeah, that only makes it harder because we're all not doing things as normal as it is right now, and now we've got to deal with hurricane season. As many of us have been experienced with it, but things change every year. I mean, you guys have been getting better and better every year. I've lived here since '94, and I mean, obviously that's a long time ago, but the response from '94 till 2020, I mean, it's exponentially better, and I'm sure that's nothing that you guys don't know already. Let's start with FPL itself, right? I'm sorry, actually, we're starting with the pandemic here. What have you guys done with the pandemic? How has COVID-19 affected your preparedness for hurricane season?
Thanks for asking, Todd. We actually, FPL, had a pandemic plan. We developed it after H1N1 almost 10
Okay.
years ago. And it was really helpful to be able to take that off, dust it off, and update it, right? So we really kind of started the ground running there. And it was so important because when we looked at our hurricane preparations, there were so many things that we had to look to tweak, change, update so that we would fully contemplate all the restrictions and limitations that we're now seeing because of the pandemic. So, many of our business owners many of our participants or audience will be, for them who are able to reopen and are choosing to do so, we want FPL, we want you to know that we're there for you. And throughout this pandemic, our commitment remains the same. We'll continue to be there for you, delivering reliable service always.
All right. Well, we're glad to see that it hasn't affected your preparedness, and it's awesome that H1N1 actually triggered this 10 years ago. So you guys have been prepared, which is amazing. Was there, H1N1 wasn't to the level we are now, and it's completely different. I think planning for something after the fact, and now we really have to put it into place.
Yeah.
How smooth was that implementation, and was there a lot of tweaks that you guys had to make to the plan now that we're actually living it?
Absolutely. A lot of changes, but again, having the template, it just made it that much easier. This has been so dynamic. I don't think anyone was prepared for the depth and breadth of the effects and impacts of the pandemic. But we take our role so seriously, and we're doing as much as we can to be reactive and, but more so proactive to what COVID-19 brings. So, we've done a few things that have been helpful. First thing, we've fast tracked some savings. So, as a utility, the fuel costs vary, and fortunately, they've been lower. And we
Hmm.
pass the savings on to our customers because we know many of our customers are facing financial difficulty during this crisis through to, because of layoffs and many other of the challenges. So we actually passed on savings to our customers on their May bills. We also have been really thoughtful about helping our customers through this difficult time. So, for those who have had difficulty paying bills, we have been able to offer extensions. Currently, we are absolutely staying, we're not doing any disconnections, and we are pointing them to various resources that provide financial support specifically to pay utility bills. So, we are offering as much as we can to support our customers because we understand, I myself have friends and relatives who are struggling because of the issues with COVID. So we really encourage our customers to take advantage of all that we're trying to offer and really have a lot of personalized energy saving recommendations that we can provide so that your businesses can continue to sustain themselves.
Well, as a residential customer of FPL, I thank you for the savings. I think you guys are doing great. I'm very happy to pay less money, and I'm glad that you guys are passing on your savings to us. I think that's a huge stand-up thing to do for a large organization. You had mentioned some of the programs and tools that you guys are providing to help people. Rory had pointed me to your website, and it is a wealth of general information on hurricane season and COVID-19 and everything else. Staying on COVID-19, are there any other programs or tools that we may not have mentioned yet that people can find on your website or can turn to FPL for to help their businesses that have been affected or are continuing to be affected?
Absolutely. So, regarding our assistance for bill payments and so on, fpl.com/help, we want to make
Mhm.
it clear and memorable. We're here to help. And certainly, we have a lot of updates for businesses on how to uh, really manage their energy usage, track it, and identify trends so that they can really manage their bills, as well as customized solutions. And that can be found on the Business Energy Expert at BBEE at FPL.com. And we also have a 1-800 number that will guide you to that same information. That's 1-800 375 2434. That's 1-800 375 2434.
I mean, that's awesome that you have multiple ways that people can reach out to you. Obviously, people of different ages and people of different, they have different ways they like to communicate. So for folks that are not happy to go online, the phone number sounds great. And it's good that you're reaching out to everybody, not moving on from the pandemic so much, but, we've been dealing with this for a while and you guys have been putting that information out there. We are in the thick of hurricane season now and businesses are not running normally. There are people all over the place. They're not necessarily within their corporate offices anymore. What can businesses do to be ready for this storm season? I mean, they're a month late. And like everybody else in Florida, I'm sure if a storm comes, they're gonna be sitting there. Okay, do I have to put the shutters up? Do I have to put? It's gonna turn. It's got to turn. It's definitely gonna. Oh no, it's not turning. And then so what can we do to make sure that we're all not out there the day or two before the storm in the lines at Home Depot, making sure that we're ready?
Yeah. So if there's one thing we emphasize and we really live is being prepared. So FPL will do its best work because of the level of preparation we've put into for storm restoration, and now this year, storm restoration during a pandemic. Our first priority is safety, and we really encourage our customers to do the same. So, for instance, FPL as an employee, we are all encouraged to come up with our personal plans, right? So, I have a personal plan. I know exactly where, if a storm hits, where our secondary option of moving to, if it's a cat 4 or 5. I know where my dog is going to be. I know where my husband has to go because I personally will have to stay local as part of the emergency response team. So, translating that to individual, personal, both businesses and individuals, businesses really want to encourage their employees to do the same, right? So that their employees are prepared, because that will help with their business continuity plan as well. But by all means, businesses should be looking at their business continuity plans to see if, and utilize technology to the best extent they can to be prepared. In terms of just even individuals, we really recommend that you have as much supplies as you might need during a storm, because we always say, we're very transparent, the storms are going to cause outages. Our job is to
Yeah.
restore them. So expect the outages, be ready for some inconvenience when the lights are out and until we get you back restored.
Yeah, I mean that's something that we're always going to have to deal with. There's no way around it. There's going to be an outage. It's a powerful storm, and you guys have done a great job in minimizing the time of that outage after the storm. So to shamelessly plug ourselves here at Wheelhouse, and I can do that because it's our show. We help people a lot with their technology plan from business continuity, from disaster recovery on the actual assets of the business and how people can continue working through the storm. It seems like FPL is really encouraging people to have a people plan, if you will, right? To make sure that their employees know not only, hey, if you happen to be in the office in the storm, this is what we're going to do for work, but really to kind of check in with their employees and say, hey, you're going to have the day off. You're going to be home. You're going to be with your family. Do you have a plan to make sure that you and your family can get through the storm? Is that kind of, where you're going with this?
You're absolutely correct. And going back to the work that Wheelhouse does, it's so important that our businesses prepare with their technology to be ready to, brave a storm after for the business continuity piece. The interesting thing is the pandemic. One of the positives is that we've kind of been tested on that already, right? So most businesses, because of stay-at-home orders, have had employees working remotely and testing their technology systems to see if they're up to par, so that the business continuity occurs during the pandemic. This is the very same type of situation we expect post-storm, right? So if the business no longer has a standing facility or building for employees to return to, that we've already been tested kind of works. So that's really one of the positives in the pandemic. But really think about all the possible scenarios that might in any way interrupt your business or impact your employees. That's exactly right, Todd.
100%. And I think that's great advice. I mean, again, shamelessly plugging ourselves, our team members have been doing this extensively over the course of the pandemic with our clientele. Not me, I get to sit on this webcam and just represent all of them. But, our team members has been making sure that remote workers are well supported. I think one of the things, and I'll just, leveraging my background that people need to understand is some of the remote working solutions that you have implemented to help support your employees during the pandemic may not be hurricane proof. So that's something that I think people need to start looking into. To get a little tech nerdy here, people are using VPN tunnels, they're using remote desktop services, and the biggest flaw or the single point of failure for those is a loss of power, right? And like I
Right.
said, you guys have done a great job to make sure that that doesn't go on too long, but you're going to lose access to your corporate network if you're using one of those solutions and you don't have redundancies in place. So I think a
Right.
lot of people at this point need to ensure that if your corporate office or wherever your data center is going to be loses power, that you are prepared for that and that your employees can still access the corporate network and the corporate information, leveraging programs like the Microsoft cloud offerings and other cloud offerings to do so. So just adding our 2 cents in there, but on the vein of technology, right? And this is a different
Yes.
level of technology. At the beginning of the show, I had mentioned that I moved down here in 94, and the response, no fault to FPL, just technology got better over time. I mean, when I moved down here in 94, I was using a dial up computer to get to my AOL account, Nelly5144, that screen name will live on in infamy. But, you guys in the last, oh my God, 26 years, I almost said 16 years, in the last 26 years, I mean, the last storm that came through 2 years ago that really hit South Florida and Florida in general, I forget the name of it. I ran up to Orlando to kind of get out of the path of the storm. I remember within about 24 to 36 hours, power was back on and I was heading back home from Orlando. It was very quick, very efficient. The trucks were on the road. The debris was being clear. Between that process and some of the technology that you guys have leveraged, what are you using to make sure that the grid is stronger and that you're able to restore power faster?
So, Todd, your comments are, it sounds like music to my ears. It's like you're singing to me, right? We're really proud of the advances we've made. And let me tell you about some of the things we've done that allow us to restore more quickly. After every storm, there's a complete debrief to look at the learnings. What can we do better? So for next year, we will see improvement, right? We have a value of continuous improvement. So going back to Irma, we saw that the biggest hurdle that we had were we were losing poles. Poles were coming down. When poles come down, it is a tremendous uh, effort to replace the poles before we can even get to reinstalling the lines. And that takes the most time. Not only does, in terms of the equipment, but the actual repole installation. So we knew we had to do something about that. So many of you in your neighborhoods throughout Florida are seeing new poles being installed, both wood and concrete, that are now cat rated. They're storm rated to withstand winds of over 130 miles per hour. And what that affords us is uh, the benefit that when these strong winds come, these poles don't come down. And if they, some will, but by far it's significantly less. We only have, there's been a significant improvement in the number of poles coming down. What that did for us was tremendous. So we're able now just to replace the lines that come down, which is a far easier lift and takes a much shorter time. That would be one of the biggest changes that has occurred. We're continuing to harden, so you'll continue to see those poles being replaced because we have thousands in the system, but we are almost there. And in certain areas, we've actually made sure that those poles have been replaced to uh, support power to our primary or critical facilities, such as hospitals, police stations, and so forth. So those were made a priority as well. The second thing we've done is technology. Back to you, right? So our smart meters that everybody now has allows us to see when an outage occurs, so that is easier to deploy help or to get the power back on. We also have smart nodes on many of our poles. So in many instances, we are actually able to correct the problem as soon as it occurs remotely, which is going to help us in this pandemic as well, because the less we have our employees, our linemen going out unnecessarily, the better.
It makes me really proud to be a Floridian with companies like you, and I'll dig into that a little bit. Florida gets a bad rap because we always have some weird crap going on here. Whether it's whatever Florida man does this, and there's that thing where you can Google Florida man and any date or your birthday, and some weird story is going to come up. When you really look at the people of Florida and how they make our state amazing, it's unfortunate that when you see a hurricane, a Cat 1, Cat 2, go to somewhere like Charleston or Hilton Head or somewhere else along the coast, the amount of damage that it does is incredible. And we sit down here in South Florida and go, that's a one or two. We take for granted the fact that there are companies like FPL that have worked so hard, and it makes me extremely happy to hear about those debrief meetings. I mean, I think that's the absolute best way to handle things, is to learn from the things that didn't go well. That realistically down here, and maybe it's our experience, unless it's a Cat 4, we're not that afraid of it. Now, I know that's a bad to have that false sense of security because there are so many different factors that can make a storm bad. Heavy rainfall, a dry storm with storms, with tornadoes, which was Andrew. But I just want to really commend you guys, that it makes me really proud that I can sit in my house and just watch the news, and if it is not a Cat 1, Cat 2 is could be the same as a Thursday afternoon thunderstorm to us here in Florida.
Right.
So thank you guys so much for that.
So thank you for saying that. So as you were talking through this, I recalled two other things that we actually launched last year. And it was, we were the first utility in the industry to do both of these things. And they were really completely catalytic, made a huge change. And they came from these debriefs, when we talked about what we could see, where were the lags, where were the gaps, what can we close? So one of them was using drone technology, right? So we have now, last year we launched for the first time, we're the first utility to do it in post-storm restoration using drones to go out immediately after the storm subsides, because we can use them before it's safe even for uh, our workers to go out, to look in advance and see what the damage is. It helps us to determine where the worst damage is, what kind of equipment, what kind of crews, and what kind of effort it will take to restore in those very difficult to reach and difficult to restore areas. So that was huge, huge. We were able to then build that into our plan and made us a lot more efficient. And the other thing that was record changing was we thought about, now everybody sees this, right? During storm season, we really appreciate fellow utilities coming down into Florida from other states all over the nation to help. And we do the same thing. When storms occur, we go and help in other areas. So we've all seen that convoy, welcome
Hmm.
view of convoy of utility trucks coming in. Well, it occurred to us that it usually they're pre-deployed on the perimeter of the state, right? So that as soon as the storm clears, they then come into the state. And we know we have a very long state. So it can take as
Hmm.
much as 10 to 12 hours for them to come into South Florida. Well, we tried actually pre-deploying them, having them come into the area where the storm was anticipated to hit beforehand, have them safely hosted in storm resistant facilities, so that as soon as the storm passed and it was safe for them to do so, we had a much greater workforce to be able to go out. That changed. We, instead of it being up to 12 hours after for the extra help, we had them within an hour. So, as soon as they were safe to do so, that again was a huge shift. That's almost a day's work, right? So we were able to bring customers on that much faster.
I go back to being that proud Floridian, and during the last storm, I saw that. I saw you guys had huge staging areas and stadium parking lots and all these places with the bucket trucks and everything else. And even going back to that last storm where I said I went up to Orlando, I remember driving back down to South Florida and sharing the road with all these trucks carrying these massive generators and everything else. It was absolutely incredible, and you knew where they were going, but 100%. I don't think people realize how big Florida is when you come from other states, right? I'm from the Northeast, and you can go through 5 states within the amount of time it takes to go through Florida. Right here on the desk, I went to Florida State University. I'm in South Florida. That's in the Panhandle. That's a 6.5 hour drive. People don't realize that, and that's driving like a fast idiot college student. So, if we're staging people at the border of Florida, it can be 8, 9 hours if they're driving straight through in a sports car. So I think
Very
it's
much so.
incredible what you. Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Having such a massive state and bringing in assets from other state to help, how hard is that really to coordinate that kind of effort, making sure that you're getting the right resources to the right areas? Because at the end of the day, storms are predictable, but they're not. Right? It can turn on a dime. It can go in another direction. Are you guys reacting to that storm as well? How are you coordinating with the other assets that are coming to help us?
So, good question. That is probably one of the best run systems that we have. I think because we are also dependent on each other, all our utilities, when these emergencies occur. So there is a lot of conversation going on now in it well in advance. talking at that, monitoring who has the ability, the willingness, and so on. So the difficulty here, the challenge, I should say, is with this pandemic, every utility has their own internal policies that may or may not impact their ability to lend assistance this coming
Hmm.
storm season. So we've been finding that there are some utilities that have not been able to make a determination to what extent they will be able to support or assist. Um, so there is a level of uh, not knowing at this point. So that is not as where we'd love to be. But that being said, we all need to be aware that during a pandemic, it's going to be a different situation, and we respect other utilities' decisions in that regard. So. We are operating under the assumption that we may not be able to get as much support from other utilities as we have in the past. And because of that, we're anticipating and contemplating every way to leverage our technology and our pre-planning here to make sure that we can maximize every single worker and be as efficient as we can to do the best we can with the workforce that we ultimately have.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me because I look at this situation and I imagine the folks who come from the other states to come help in Florida after it's all said and done. I feel like they might be better at doing their job when they return home. I mean, you're coming down here and you're training with the best because we're more experienced at these storms than anybody else. I equate it, I read the book American Sniper, and you have the SEAL team that are training the basic Marines in all these advanced tactics, right? Now, obviously, it's not war, but for people to come in from Georgia and Alabama and wherever else in the country to work alongside the people that have gone through storm after storm after storm to work under the FPL umbrella who has gone after storm after storm after storm, that I can only imagine there are a few offhanded comments like, oh man, those guys really know what they're doing. And maybe they bring some of those best practices back to their state. Is FPL and your people kind of looked at? I would look at you as the SEAL team of the utilities. I mean, is there kind of like a underlying comment?
I have to tell you, I love that, and I'm going to use that. Yeah. So, to your point, Todd, and I have met that because I'm often on the ground meeting and seeing other workers from other utilities, and we do get a lot of that. So it is, I agree. There's a lot to be said when working together, collaborating, that we're all learning from each other. But yes, I'd like to say that we have a lot to contribute so that others can take that away. But we appreciate everything they do when they're here.
Very cool. No, it's an amazing effort. Like I said, I'm a very proud Floridian. So I've gone down the rabbit hole of, how great FPL is. And I love talking to you about all the things that you guys are doing to make sure that we recover from these storms. Let's bring this back to where we were beginning, because we're getting towards the end here. What what things should business owners have in mind currently while we're in the middle of the pandemic and we are in the middle of hurricane season? What just real quick, let's review what they should have top of mind while we're going through this together.
So definitely leverage and utilize all available tools. So, we've shared that there are tools on the FPL website that you can monitor your usage and be prepared in that way. Have a business continuity plan. Have a plan for your employees. Make sure they're looking at their own plans. Definitely make sure if you don't have a generator and your business will require uh, continuous support of power, that you consider doing that as well. It really makes a difference when you are prepared, whether it's battery operated devices that you can use or generators. If you are dependent on that for your business, make sure you have that done. Take care of it. Be prepared.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. And then one last time, you had mentioned two websites at the top. Let's just go over them and the phone number one more time so people who have stayed on with us this long can remember those and write them down, and then we can let you get out of here.
All right. Sure. No, absolutely. They're great resources. So first is FPL \help, and that's for any customers that need assistance with perhaps doing scheduled bill payments and any other assistance recommendations regarding resources to pay your bills. That's a great place to start. Also, for businesses looking to see how they can use some tools that we have recommended and manage and track your usage, that's the business energy expert at BEE at FPL.com. That's BEE at FPL.com. Or you can call at 1 800 375 2434. 1 800 375 2434. And there you go.
And I just thank you so much. And I just want to add on top of that, great resources from FPL. If you are looking for a little bit more detailed plan for your technology, the things you should be using, how you can take advantage of cloud technologies, please reach out to us at wheelhouseit.com. And if you want kind of a aggregate of information from the National Weather Center, from FPL, and a lot of our partners that have done these with us, go to wheelhouseit.com/storm. That's wheelhouseit.com/storm. Juliet, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And really, thanks for having FPL. We appreciate sharing what we do and also pointing out things to help our customers.
Absolutely. No, thank you again. You guys do a great job, and you make me a very proud Floridian. So, thank you, everybody at home. This has been another episode of In Your Wheelhouse with Todd Rosales. Join us next week. We'll see you then.